Hey, true believers. Thought I'd take a break from the Age of Apocalypse event to go over a book that I kind of picked up on a whim this weekend, because it's been a while since I've been to the comic shop due to the beer bug. You guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, this is X Factor #1. In all my reviews, I usually say, I'll look at a book and I'll be like, I was not looking forward to that, and then my expectations get changed and I'll go, oh man, that was amazing. Sadly, this was not one of those. This was one of those books that I was actually, like, chomping at the bit to pick up, because Leah Williams, who wrote this, is actually a really good writer. But yeah, we'll get into it. So in this book, the plot is kind of interesting because it opens up on a certain mutant dying, and what happens is Jean Paul Valley, North Star, he jumps into the five who do the resurrections. And you get, okay, so first off, if you want to know who died, read the book. So it opens up so you have stakes. So that's always important in story writing. And what I like about North Star here is he does not care about what anybody thinks. He just jumps right into the middle of the five, and they're like, hey, you cannot jump the line. We have protocols here. And yeah, he's like, oh, is that a problem? Did I not bring you enough presents to make you feel like you're doing your job? And they're like, well, how do you know this person died? And they're like, well, buddy, we can't help you because we have tons of requests for people wanting people to come back to life due to what the five can do here on Krakoa. So I like how North Star, he gets in his face and he calls the five groveling, well, he calls the people asking for resurrection, he calls them groveling supplicants, because you see them hanging these photos of their loved ones to the five, and the five are like, hey, we need to implement some sort of protocol so that we're just not getting overwhelmed with requests, because think of all the dead mutants that still need to be brought back here on Krakoa. So anyway, they say, if you can get us proof of death on this person, then we'll go ahead and start initiating the resurrection protocols. So he kind of gets some information, and he ends up at the Green Lagoon Tiki Bar, where the Blob is the bartender, and he runs into Polaris. And she's like, you're going about this all wrong. And I feel like here, they should have left this, they should have put this at the end of the book, because this kind of spoils a lot of what happens at the end. So it says, is someone you love dead? X Factor investigations. Is someone you love missing? X Factor investigations. Need proof of death? X Factor investigations. Now, where it says, feeling shy? Good a juicy tip for the hotline that you don't want to be associated with? Ask Krakoa to provide a fleet seed. Just whisper your message into the shell and it'll pass on the message for you. I'm not decoding that. So for all of you that are fluent in Krakoan, leave the decode down in the comments below, because I'm not going to go through all of that. No. But with that said, let's talk about who made this book. This is Leah Williams writing, David Belden doing the art, Israel Silva doing the colors, VC's Joe Carmanga doing the lettering. Here's everyone else associated with the book, and I don't want to tell you the title because it kind of gives it away. Now, while they're in the tiki bar, Dawkin kind of wakes up sort of drunk, and he's like, hey, I'll join your team. And the two just leave him, and he's like, cowards, you could have just said no. Now, this Dawkin, and I'll explain more as we go in through this, but I miss the really sadistic Dawkin from Dark Avengers. This one just feels, I don't know, there's something missing. And speaking of missing, we get Iboy here, which, I'm going to be honest, he is not one of my favorite characters. But anyway, he's sitting here poking eyes, and the artwork here just feels kind of flat. You see him here just kind of like, ooh, I'm making goofy eyes. And then you see the what Team Polaris and North Star put together, which I do not know this guy's name, and then Rachel Summers. And they're just standing there. Now, if you think back to when we did X Factor number 71, remember how the artwork was dynamic, even though it was just Polaris and Guido just kind of having fun back and forth between each other about Great Papan? and how they did that long angle where the show like it led your eyes. This just feels so flat. And look at Rachel, just they look like teeny boppers. They don't have dynamic uniforms yet. And then Dawkin just kind of comes out of the shadows and says he's going to join whether people like it or not. And as you can see, so much talking. This is a number 1. This should pull you in immediately, which it does. You open the first page, and what kind of sparks Jean Paul through this, you're like, okay, yeah, I am on board. But instead of getting some action, like even when, again, let's go back to Peter David's X Factor 71. They're bringing the team together. Remember how Havoc's working in Genosha, and Val Cooper stands in front of that falling girder, and he uses his powers immediately, and like get all this dynamic dust flying everywhere, and then we see Farrell get in the face of everybody because she wants to protect him. We have people standing in the room talking. Same thing again. I would have loved to seen Dawkin do some Wolverine darkness, like get into some fighting, but he's wasted. All he's doing is he's flirting with the hotel clerk, getting information. That's it. More talking. I would have, and okay, so here, then it kind of starts to pick up again because they find out where this dead mutant crashed their car. And Iboy here is like, what am I looking for? And Rachel's like, car-shaped things. He goes, do you think you could narrow it down a bit? Now think about that. You know, if cops had the ability to look in the river, how many missing cars they might actually have seen? That's kind of very cryptic and just sort of like, whoa, you know what I mean? And so another thing that I want to mention here is Rachel has this pet thingy she calls Amazing Baby, which I kind of wish this sort of like YA stuff in the X-Men books would stop. Like, okay, if they want a YA book, sure, make one. But not for X Factor. Not for X Factor. I mean, think about this compared to Benjamin Percy's X-Force, where that book makes you think a little bit, and it's intense. And even though Fallen Angels kind of, you know, it fell short because it ended quickly and it was taken over by Hellions, which Hellions to me is another relatively good read. But Amazing Baby, so cute. No, not Rachel Summers. Think about Rachel. Think about when Claremont made her. When we went over her in New Mutants number 18, and she wants to go into the Xavier Institute, but she's like, the timeline's not right here because Ileana's an adult, and she's this conflicted, caring person, not this kind of jaded character that's trying to get her pet mutant thing to poop. Same thing with Polaris, and we'll get into Polaris here in a minute. I'm not saying this book's bad, but there's a lot of reading. And, you know, a comic book you have to read. But then again, it goes back to what I said about show, don't tell. Now, they find the mutant. And what I like is how Jean Paul just plops the body right in the middle of the 5. Like, if they would have kind of cut down, or at least made the investigation more dynamic, that would have kept you, but you're kind of reading and you're like, okay, they're going step by step by step. But if they would have maybe made some action or something in between right there, and then this, where it splat, just drops the dead body, boom, that would have been perfect because that's Jean Paul. He does not care. So anyway, Polaris is talking about they need to talk to the 5 because they think this is a murder. And she's like, oh, I'm texting my dad. Council's convening. We got 2 hours to prepare. Polaris here is portrayed as a young teen. She's not a teen. Think about, again, Claremont days when her and Alex were on the verge of building a life together, and they're out in the New Mexico mountains. They're starting a life, and then they got hit by I think it was the Marauders, and you know how she just went through this whole tragic life story. And then her and Havoc trying to repair their relationship in X Factor. They are X-Men that have been around the block. Even Havoc in Hellions right now, he's an adult, and he's fighting these inner demons of what happened with, I think it was Axis. But Polaris here just looks like a teen. And think about how she was in X Factor 71 when she's talking to Guido, how that one panel where her hair covers the whole thing, and you can see that this is a woman that has been through a lot but still has a caring heart. This just looks like a jaded teenager to me. And so we get into the investigation, and more talking. It would have been interesting because they're talking about, okay, this guy that killed this mutant is part of this anti-mutant thing. So it would have been interesting to see the team go up against this anti-mutant establishment like they did in X-Force when Wolverine and Quentin had to get Domino back from the Flower Cartel. And, oh man, those were such intense, dynamic panels. But this is just flat panels of people talking. And again, back to Rachel wearing like the 90s Jinko pants, asking why her dog is finally pooping. I miss the old Rachel. And I don't like this. I'm glad that they're not really calling her Prestige. Now, the last thing that I was talking about is here, this is where they meet up with Forge, and Forge is talking about making those fleet seeds so people can talk unanimously, and how X-Force is now officially a team. That page that we were just going over where they were talking about missing loved one, X-Factor investigations. That should have been the page before the teaser to kind of see that this is official now, but that sort of just kind of gave everything away. So yeah, here, this character, I have no idea what his name is. They're saying these are all cases from the fleet seeds, and they're like, obviously. So you see that they have their work cut out for them. So again, Leigh Williams' work, I think it was Gwenpool that she wrote. That was a good book. It was fun. And Gwenpool was one of those ones you can kind of get away with in terms of a little bit of like YA, which means young adult, kind of like Hunger Games and novels like that. But for X Factor's always been a more serious book. Even when it was the original 5 X-Men, the stuff that they dealt with, the way that they became a team, and how Cyclops just straight up left Maddie and Nathan to go back to Jean. Or Endgame, when Apocalypse infects Cable with the Techno-Organics virus as a baby, and they have to send him into the future. Those were some deep stories. The same thing with like how, I don't remember what issue it is, but the death of Madeline Pryor in X Factor, or how Angel lost his wings and how he became Archangel. Those were very serious, dramatic, character-driven stories that sucked you in. This has that potential because of the subject matter of investigating the deaths of loved ones. In a sense, it kind of makes death relevant again. Yeah, they get revived, but you see the anguish that people are going through and how they're begging for their loved ones to come back. So I like that Leigh Williams is really pulling on that heartstring there, because that hit me. When I read the opening page, I went, whoa! But then it just gets bogged down with dialogue and some flat panels. We need some dynamicness like in the X-Force book. So again, those are my opinions on this book. What are yours? I'd love to hear everyone's feedback down in the comments below, or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description below. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a minute to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you've enjoyed this comic, or you want to read about why they're investigating, please, first and foremost, support your local comic shop to see if they still have this book in stock. So with all that said, thank you all for stopping by and checking out this book with me. I hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.